Get six-pack abs in 30 minutes, the routine that works after 40. Most men have tried diet, cardio, ab workouts 3 times a week. Nothing stuck. The problem was never effort, it was the sequence. 5 phases. Here's the system that actually works.
Phase 1. Eliminate visceral fat first. Before any ab exercise matters, this has to happen. Most men think the problem is the layer of fat directly under the skin. That's part of it, but in men over 40, the primary obstacle is deeper. Visceral fat, the layer wrapped around the organs that pushes the abdomen outward from the inside. A man with low subcutaneous fat but high visceral fat will have a protruding abdomen regardless of how developed his abs are. Ab exercises don't touch visceral fat, not 1 rep of anything. What does? A moderate caloric deficit combined with resistance training and zone 2 cardio twice a week. Resistance training preserves muscle mass during the deficit, which keeps metabolic rate from dropping. Zone 2 cardio maximizes fat oxidation without triggering the cortisol response that higher intensities produce, the cortisol response that, after 40, directly promotes visceral fat accumulation. One number matters here. Waist circumference below 37 inches. That's the threshold where visceral fat stops being the dominant obstacle to visible abdominal definition. Above it, no ab routine, no frequency, no intensity produces the result. The muscle exists, the layer covering it is too deep to train around. This is phase 1, not because it's the easiest, because nothing after it works until this one does. The second phase targets something most men never connect to the way their abdomen looks, and fixing it can drop waist circumference by an inch or 2 without changing calories.
Phase 2. Control insulin and bloating. The man eating clean, training consistently, and still waking up with a distended abdomen every morning has an insulin problem, not a diet problem, not a training problem, an insulin timing problem. Here's the mechanism. After 40, insulin sensitivity declines. The body requires more insulin to process the same amount of carbohydrate it handled efficiently at 30. Chronically elevated insulin promotes sodium and water retention, concentrated in the abdominal region. That retention isn't fat, it's fluid, but it looks identical in the mirror. The practical result, a man in a real caloric deficit, training 4 days a week, can carry 2 to 3 centimeters of extra abdominal circumference that has nothing to do with fat and everything to do with the glycemic load of his 2 main meals. The adjustment is simple. Replace high glycemic carbohydrates in the 2 main meals, white bread, excess white rice, added sugar, with low glycemic sources, sweet potato, brown rice, oats, legumes. Same calories, different insulin response, different fluid retention outcome. That single swap, no other dietary change, reduces abdominal circumference by 2 to 3 centimeters in 4 weeks in men over 40 with compromised insulin sensitivity. The muscle was already there. The bloating was covering it. This isn't a diet overhaul. It's one decision per meal, repeated consistently. The first 2 phases clear the way. Phase 3 is where most men have been wasting their time for years, doing the wrong exercises for the wrong reasons and getting exactly the results that approach deserves. Want a strong and healthy body? Hit the like button. If you're not subscribed to the channel yet, click the subscribe button.
Phase 3. Build the right abdominal muscle. Crunches and sit-ups don't build the six-pack, not because they're easy, because they train the wrong movement pattern for the wrong stimulus. And in men over 40, they come with a structural cost that makes them the worst return available in any ab routine. Here's the mechanism. The visible abdominal muscle, the rectus abdominis, responds to maximum tension in a lengthened position and sustained isometric contraction, not to repeated short-range spinal flexion. The crunch moves through a small arc at the top of the range. The rectus never reaches full stretch. The stimulus for hypertrophy, the mechanical tension that triggers growth, is minimal. The sit-up adds lumbar disc compression to that minimal stimulus. Every rep generates compressive load on the lower spine that biomechanics researchers classify as risk threshold for men with any disc history. Maximum spinal cost, minimal muscle stimulus. 3 exercises replace both. Ab wheel rollout, maximum rectus abdominis tension at full stretch, the position that produces the strongest hypertrophic signal available for this muscle. No lumbar compression, full range. Hanging knee raise recruits the lower rectus and iliacus in a pattern no floor exercise replicates. The hip flexor contribution is real and necessary for the lower abdominal definition most men never develop. Progressive plank. Sustained isometric contraction that builds actual muscular thickness, not surface activation. Progress by adding instability or unilateral support, not just time. 3 sets each, twice a week, 8 to 10 minutes total. More abdominal development than 5 days a week of crunches with 0 lumbar cost. The muscle is being built. The fat is being addressed. What destroys them both simultaneously and what most men do every time they try to lean out is coming next.
Phase 4, the caloric deficit that doesn't destroy muscle. Every man over 40 who's tried to get lean has made this mistake. Cut hard, lose weight fast, lose muscle with it, stop the diet, regain the fat, restart 6 months later with less muscle than before. Repeat for a decade. The cycle isn't a willpower problem, it's a math problem. An aggressive deficit, 700 to 1,000 calories below maintenance, produces rapid weight loss. It also produces simultaneous muscle loss. After 40, where muscle protein synthesis already operates below the efficiency of a decade ago, that muscle doesn't come back at the same rate when the deficit ends. Each cycle leaves the man with less lean mass as the starting point for the next attempt. Less muscle means lower basal metabolic rate. Lower metabolic rate means the same diet that previously maintained weight now generates fat accumulation. The body gets harder to lean out with every aggressive cut, not because of aging, but because of the repeated muscle loss the cutting method caused. The correct deficit is 300 to 400 calories per day, not more. That margin produces 0.6 to 0.8 pounds of fat loss per week, while keeping protein at 2 grams per kilogram of body weight and resistance training active. Muscle is preserved. Metabolic rate holds. The deficit stays productive for 8 to 12 weeks without the hormonal suppression that aggressive cutting triggers after week 3. Slower than the man wants, more permanent than anything he's trying before. 8 to 12 weeks at this deficit combined with the first 3 phases produces abdominal definition that aggressive cutting never delivered, because the muscle built in phase 3 is still there when the fat comes off. That's the part the aggressive approach always destroyed on the way down. 4 phases in, 1 left. This is where everything gets combined into a weekly structure the man can apply starting Monday, including the 30-minute routine for days without a gym.
Phase 5, the weekly structure that puts it all together. 5 phases, 1 weekly schedule. Here's exactly how it runs. Gym days, twice a week. Full compound strength session, 40 to 45 minutes. Squat pattern, hinge pattern, push, pull. This is the resistance training that preserves muscle during the deficit and drives visceral fat reduction. Ab circuit at the end. Ab wheel rollout, hanging knee raise, progressive plank. 3 sets each, 8 to 10 minutes. Done. Cardio days twice a week. Zone 2 for 30 minutes. Stationary bike, elliptical or incline walk. The intensity where short sentences are possible, but conversation isn't. This is the session that maximizes fat oxidation without cortisol elevation. The combination that specifically targets visceral fat in men over 40. 4 sessions, 4 days. The other 3 days, walk, 20 to 30 minutes, light. Active recovery, not exercise. The 30-minute home routine for days without gym access. 10 minutes of ab wheel rollout, sets of 8 to 10 reps, 90 seconds rest between. 10 minutes of hanging knee raise or dead bug, sets of 12 to 15 reps. 10 minutes of plank variations, unilateral support, feet elevated, weighted progression. No gym required. 1 ab wheel, 2 square meters of floor. What did you think of this video? Drop your honest opinion in the comments. I actually read everything. Hit the like button. If you're not subscribed to the channel yet, click the subscribe button.